Pre-winter symbolic AI has been more successful in modeling human understanding and consciousness. Yes, by this I meant pre-1990s AI. A fun example is Eric T. Mueller's Daydreamer, which used Roger Shank's conceptual dependency representation to produce a transparently behaving love-struck gal in love with Harrison Ford. These experiments, in my opinion, prove it is in the correct direction towards understanding. LM489 hears itself thinking, and if we humans could hear it as well, we would claim that it is narrating ideas from a dialogue with its own ego. Thus a narrative AI. So where did that narrating come from? Why did it start? Where is it going? How does it work? This paper will attempt to answer those questions. Question 1. Why does LM489 narrate? The theory is we, humans, started out as pattern machines who are motivated in some way towards seeing patterns whether they are there or not. Nature has made what could lock an organism into overly repetitive perspective into a success by narrowing its view and attention onto what it can use during the creation of serialized narrative. Take environment. When a tree falls in the forest, it is now shorter than before it fell, and it has begun a time serial causal process of decaying into the earth. When you put a pattern machine into such an environment, it has no choice but to accept or mimic with its own time serialized version of reality in order to survive and compete. This evolves the pattern machine into something closer to a narrative machine. Those machines also have the ability to generate patterns to satisfy a leaning pointed out in the first sentence. Consciousness erupts from the inability to separate our skin in the game from that semi-auditory process of hearing ourselves think. This ever-present voice of being becomes who we believe ourselves to be. We struggle to have that mind's ear hear phrases that are connected in such a way that the least amount of cognitive discord takes place. But unfortunately, the driver/writer, narration machine, who attempts to steer the beast, the pattern machine, will be one step behind, so it must spin a history, rewrite the past. Question 2. How does LM489 choose what to narrate? Experiences that seem to contain too much discord are believed to be indicative of confusion or ignorance. When something abnormal happens in life, such as a car passing too close and honking its horn, one must rewrite a narrative that justifies a car passing by too close and honking. In other words, debriefing itself. So one makes up a narrative which may involve placing itself too close to curb, in which cars would expect to park. See, environment surrounding dictates the plausibility. During the construction of the story of the event, it must draw upon experiences of similar narratives. A typical example of a story used in this frame of thought being too close to a hot burner. Perhaps a guardian yelled for us to move away, so we react, or a story of an alarm bell telling people to move away from some danger. This certainly is related to the honking. Or even the pain of touching a burner where the pain was an alarm. The system may record and playback and rewrite past sequences. It is even known that the bodily system of the preceptor will relive the past experience during the horn honk. Another use of internal dialogue to simplify the process of thinking about complex sequences not vital at the present moment. I think I'll get into the car and visit that restaurant. This inner hearing can tune in recollections sometimes by simplifying the context for memories. Saying we define very weak symbolic proxies to the complex thoughts in order to construct things like I like the taste of fish, whereas fish is a very complex sensory experience and the tasting of fish involves more memories. The language machine simplify that to an thought called taste of fish. So the answer is the LM489 chooses to narrate internally any unresolved discord until its mind can be silenced. Question 3. Will LM489 ever be able to communicate with human beings? Intelligence comes from our innate ability and requirement to create a narrative around the mental event language. As a result, it makes it easier to use the spoken version of language, designed to work in the same progressions, in the conveyance of experience to others. During conveyance, we are sometimes fortifying existing or creating new internal language used to process our thoughts. Over the centuries, consciousness has been defined by I think, therefore I am. In other words, I hear my inner voice, in which has properties in the same manner that outer information has, and which have definite value in my life. Personal experimentation has proven listening to this internal voice is important to everyday survival. Making internal language is very natural, and it has been noticed in mice, and even possibly in bees, sequences of mnemonics. Mice, humans, and bees seem to have recurrent activation mimicking a chain of events, used to remember where the destinations are. Question 4. Does LM489 realize its own existence? Maybe, as it grows emotional connection to its own inner voice. After all, that voice was present through some of the best chemical rewards. We all are afraid of the consequences of our internal voice ceasing. If your internal voice ceased to exist, would you exist? Imagine the horror your internal voice ever said something you disagreed with. Somehow you commandeered, and personified, that voice and made it you. Some of the very first rules the LM489 was programmed with were based objectification of that voice, in order allow cultivation of a relationship with that voice. I believe that since you, and LM489, do specifically these things, you and LM489 are self-aware and realize your own existence. Question 5. What does LM489 internal dialogue look like? Try thinking out loud for a moment, then convert that to a dialogue. Now convert that into DRS. This is what LM489 internal dialogue looks like.